Hello and welcome back to the VolReport Show. I'm Ryan Sylvia, joined by Joey Dwyer. He's with VandySports.com, Vanderbilt site on the Rivals Network. Tennessee Vanderbilt coming up, a big time matchup, but one of the bigger ones in recent history in the kind of the in-state rivalry. Tennessee feels like it's a win and in for the playoffs, a win, and maybe you're even hosting a playoff game. And Vanderbilt with a much improved season this year, trying to keep things kind of headed in the right direction after a little bit of a rough stretch. Joey, how you doing?
Good, man. I need a haircut, but excited for Saturday. Excited to be on the show. I think it's my first appearance, right?
I think so, 'cause I think last year I talked with Chris Lee, so I think
Hmm.
this is your Vol Report show debut. We're glad to have you on. You guys
He
do a great
passed the
job.
torch.
Yeah, exactly. Let's start with kind of a overarching question about Vanderbilt's season this year. How surprised are you by the success they've had, or is this kind of what you expected heading into things?
Uh, I would say I'm not surprised, but I would look dumb because we went on our preseason preview show and I said they're going to win 3 games, and one of those is going to be the Georgia State game. And I was trying to convince people that they were they had no chance of losing to Georgia State and that they were going to have a really hard time winning a single SEC game. And they beat Alabama, they beat Kentucky, they beat Auburn on the road. They have had a remarkable season under Clark Lee. When it looked like his back was against the wall, maybe his job wasn't quite on the line, but I think they had to really prove something this year. And man, they did it. They beat Alabama, they beat Kentucky, beat Virginia Tech, and I think just the way that they've played to their blueprint and have executed that has been remarkable. They know who they are. They know how to win. And Ryan, they haven't been perfect every week. They haven't played a perfect game since Alabama, which was like October 5th, but they still found a way to win when they're not at their best. And I think that's the mark of a good team. And I think Vanderbilt football is good this year, and they're a good team regardless of what their record says.
Yeah, they've lost three of their last four. They have that Auburn win in there, but it's only a 3 point loss to Texas, who's obviously one of the best teams in the country. It's a 28-7 loss to South Carolina, who's proven to be one of the better teams in the SEC, and then a 7 point loss to LSU on the road. Does it feel like a rough stretch, or is it just kind of you're playing tight games, you're playing good SEC teams, and you're not going to win them all?
I think this has felt worse than the rest of the year. I think the biggest thing is their scheme. They have run a really unique scheme where they're trying to control the ball, and some coaches in the SEC have compared it to the triple option in Navy, and I don't think the Vandy fan bases love that because of they think that's minimizing their downfield throwing attack. But the truth is, it is different, and I think it is something that a lot of SEC teams haven't seen, and now they're starting to see it a little more. And I think what you've seen in the last 3 to 4 weeks is Vanderbilt is not able to just win body on body against most SEC teams. They won't be able to do it against Tennessee. They've got to out scheme them, and they haven't really been able to do that recently. And also, they haven't been super healthy. Diego Pavia is really banged up. I think we ask Clarkley every week, is he going to play this week? And he's like, yeah, he'll play, but he's going to get checked out. He's going to get treated for all these things. And Cedric Alexander, their bell cow back, has been banged up for a couple weeks. Eli Stowers, I think, is a little banged up, their go-to tight end, and teams have tried to take him out of the game a little bit. So Vandy's going to have to win on Saturday if they're going to win in a way that they haven't. They're going to have to force a lot of turnovers, which I don't know that I'm super optimistic that they can do. I think they're going to have to throw it down the field a little bit and do it somewhat consistently, which isn't necessarily their game. I think their game is establishing the run and winning that way. They're going to have to play a little bit off identity to win a game like this, or they're going to have some fluky plays go their way. And I think that's kind of been the message the last couple of weeks, right? Is they are nowhere near full strength in terms of their health, and I think they've almost been figured out a little bit too. And I'm sure Tennessee's going to be ready for a lot of the stuff that worked early in the year. You look at the shovel pass to Eli Stowers that was big in the Alabama game, and I think the Virginia Tech game as well. I don't know if that's going to work against Tennessee. It didn't work against LSU. That's kind of a microcosm of it. Teams are ready for what they're going to do now, and it's a lot different.
Do you expect them to try to like maybe put some wrinkles in, try to show some new things, or do you think they're just going to try to go back to what's worked previously in the year and hope it works against Tennessee? Like how much of a game plan? I know you're not the coach, so it's tough to say for sure. But like, how much of a game plan do you think is going to change just because teams feel like they're maybe catching on?
Yeah, I think they're going to try to change it a little bit. They started to get Nate Johnson involved a little bit against LSU. I think there's only so much they can do, though. This is what they've pigeonholed themselves into, and that's not been a bad thing. That's worked for them all season, but I don't know if there's that much they can change now. It's just, can they win in a different way? Can they do it outside of throwing the ball to Eli Stowers 10 times? Can they find a way to move it on the ground without Cedric Alexander being 100% or Diego Pavia being 100%, they're going to have a difficult time. And I think it is interesting to just think about what they do as a contingency plan, because I don't know if there's a great answer to that. And I think if there was, they probably would have beaten LSU, but it just feels like they've got to win one-on-ones more than Vanderbilt fans would like them to have to win one-on-ones at this point.
Everyone talks about Diego Pavia's legs. What does he bring to the game with his arm and through the air?
I mean, he brings a lot, right? I think he brings more when he's able to complement it with his legs, and his legs have been a huge part of the offense. But I just feel like Diego Pavia has maybe missed 5 throws decisively throughout the year. Like, every throw maybe isn't perfect, but he puts in a spot where his guy can go get it. And if he had better receivers, and he has fine receivers, but I think that's one of their offseason needs, is to get a good receiver who they can really rely on. But Pavia just seems to always have a knack for putting it where his receiver can get it, and it really doesn't turn the ball over either. And that's been a big thing for them all year. Ball control has been kind of their emphasis point, and the way he's been able to take care of it has been a huge plus for them throughout the year, and something that I think they've really hung their hat on.
Eli Stowers, kind of the big name target at tight end. Who are some other maybe skill position guys on the offense side of the ball that Tennessee fans should know?
Well, Stowers is the main one, and I think there's a pretty significant drop off, but Quincy Skinner had the 63-yard touchdown against LSU. He's their number one receiver. Has had a solid senior year after having to step up from basically being their number 4 receiver last year to being their number 1 this year. I think there's only so much you can expect from him. But Junior Sherrill's been good. He's a guy from Lipscomb Academy, a local guy. I think Tennessee fans are pretty well-conditioned at Lipscomb Academy, but Sherrill's a guy who can really run. He can make guys miss a little bit. I don't know how much he's going to be involved, but those are their 2 go-to receivers. I think Cole Spence, their second tight end, actually had a better fall camp than Eli Stowers did, and that only tells you so much. But he's a threat that I'm still kind of waiting on them to get involved a little bit more. And then their running backs are going to be involved in a good bit of ways, Alexander and Newberry. But I don't know. I think Stowers is the guy, and Tennessee's probably going to bracket him a little bit and try to take him out of the game. And that's what teams have done the last couple of weeks, and honestly, Brian, it's worked.
You look at some of those recent losses, and it doesn't look like on the surface level defense is necessarily the issue. No team getting over 30 points. How's the defense been this year?
It's been way better than it was last year, and that's pretty easy to do considering they were one of the worst Power 5 defenses last year. But they have playmakers now. They have depth. Brandon Fontenette, I think, is a guy who could be an All-American next year if he comes back to Vanderbilt. CJ Taylor has been a guy that's been around the program for a long time, who's made plays. He's moved to high safety, and that's been something that's allowed Brandon Fontenette to do what he does. I think they have really good depth on the defensive line, although they don't have a game record there, and they felt that over the last couple of weeks. I think the LSU game really showed you that they're worn down defensively. Garrett Nussmeier had just about all day to throw throughout a lot of that game, and LSU was able to run it too. I think their defense is, like I said, really starting to wear down, but their linebackers are good. They have a deep linebacker room. Like, so Patterson's banged up, but Brian Longwell has been a real revelation for them. Prince Colley is a guy who's former borderline 5-star recruit, and he's a backup in that room, and that tells you something about linebacker depth at Vanderbilt, because normally that guy would come in and he would be relied upon to be the guy. Their corners are young, but have been better than I thought they would be. So as a whole, I think the defense is much better than I thought it would be, or at least better than it was. I think my expectations were pretty high for it coming into the year, but man, I do think they're a little worn down, and I think that's something Tennessee could exploit, especially with the downfield passing game if they can't put any pressure on Nico.
Yeah, so what do you feel like the strength is if you had to pick one? Would it be in the pass game, or would it be in stopping the run?
I think throughout a lot of the year it's been run stopping, and I don't know that it's going to show up against Tennessee because they've got one of the best rushing attacks in the league, but I do think that they have enough depth on the D-line to where if I were to pick one of the two, I would say that they can stop the run a little bit better. They've only had one real poor defensive performance in stopping the run, and that was against Mizzou. Nate Noel went for like 217 yards or something, and then last weekend against LSU wasn't a great performance either, but I think teams have really picked them apart in the past games at times. But man, I think they've been good enough to win the last couple of weeks, and that's kind of been my message with the defense. It's like, you can say what you want about them, but they've given Vandy a chance to win every week, even when their offense is sputtered.
So what's Vanderbilt going to have to do on Saturday to win?
I think it's going to look different than their other wins outside of maybe Alabama if they're going to win. I think they've got to force a turnover or two that gets them in good field position or maybe allows them to score. They've got to win on special teams. And most of all, which I think this has been the biggest thing for them all year, they have to be able to take care of the ball, and they have to be able to put together long scoring drives where they go down and put 7 points on the board and take 8 minutes to do it. That's been the recipe for them all year. And they do have to be able to stop the run too, right? I think you've got to put some pressure on Nico and make him kind of run the offense and make his arm beat you. I think you look at the Auburn game, and I think that was an example of them being able to do that. Jarquez Hunter only ran for like 50 yards, and he was the leading rusher in the SEC coming into that game. So, again, back to the run defense. But Nico having to win this game all by himself, I think is probably the key for Vanderbilt. They have to be able to make Tennessee one-dimensional somehow, and I don't know that I have a whole lot of confidence in their defense that they can be able to do it. It's one of the better offenses in the country. But if there's a path, it's going to be put pressure on Nico, make him make some bad decisions, and take away the run game. But it's much easier said than done against a team like Tennessee, Ryan.
So that's what Vanderbilt's going to have to do. How do you see it playing out, though, when they actually do play?
My question about this game is whether Vandy has enough in the tank. Because I think a couple weeks back, I would have thought, man, this is going to be a really good game. I just wondered, does Vandy have enough, though? Like, are their guys too banged up? Is their depth whittle away too much? You actually look at the injury report, and it doesn't look terrible for them. The thing, though, is like the guys who aren't on the injury report, Diego Pavia is probably 60 or 70%. You saw him in the LSU game duck away from a hit, which is about the least Diego Pavia thing to do ever. I think if I were to make a prediction, I'd say Tennessee wins this game by 7 to 10 points. I think Vandy's kept it close in every game but South Carolina, like you mentioned, and I would probably expect them to do it again. And they do know they have to unlock a higher level of performance against Tennessee. Throughout Clark Lea's tenure, they've been outscored 145 to 49, and that's really something worth noting. But I would expect it to be closer this year, but I do think Tennessee comes out and wins the game. There's too much on the line for them to come out and lay up a stinker, Ryan.
You would think, but we'll see. Tennessee feels like that. Not saying this team specifically, but just as a program throughout history, feels like this would be pretty on brand at times for Tennessee to come in and lose the game to Vanderbilt. I guess final question: is this program past the point where like moral victories aren't on the table? Like, have they got to that level where, hey, Vandy kept it close with Tennessee, who's now maybe hosting the playoff game and only lost by 3? Or is it like, no, like it's time to start winning those games?
That's been one of the biggest revelations this season is even before they beat Alabama, moral victories were completely off the table. Like the Missouri game, I asked Barkley, is that a positive thing? You only lost by 3 in overtime to, at the time, a top 10 team. He goes, no, we're not about that. That's not what we're looking at. And that's just been a huge revelation within the program. I said that I asked that question almost just to see like how appalled he would be at the thought. And he was pretty appalled at the thought. And he's always respectful and things along those lines. But you could tell that people saying that it was a good thing that they were even close to the top 10 team really bothered him. And you saw it against Alabama. They want to win those games. They believe they can win games like this. I mean, CJ Taylor that week guaranteed a win to me. And that was one of the wilder moments of the season because I was like, man, I can't believe that they think they're going to win this game. And then they go and win it. So they have a level of belief and edge about them that makes more victories at this point, I think, completely impossible. Maybe it changes next year with a different roster and perhaps even a different staff in some sense. I think Tim Beck's going to have some suitors calling for him to get head coaching jobs. He's already been linked with the Rice job. So there's a lot for them in terms of what they could take moral victory-wise, but they haven't taken any of it, and I think that's been a huge step for them as a program. We'll see what it looks like next year, but for now, they want to win, and they believe they can.
All right, Joey, thank you for hopping on. Tell people where they can find your work.
For sure. Thanks, Ryan. I'm at Joey_DWI on Twitter. Wow, look at you putting the plug in there for the Twitter ad at the bottom. Work at VandySports.com, the Vandy Sports YouTube. We just filmed a roundtable podcast. We'll have a pregame show out later this week, and do some work for Hoops HQ, cover some national college basketball, and then Main Street Nashville, do some Lipscomb and Belmont too. So just trying to string a lot of things together, Ryan. But this is the biggest market for content for sure is Vandy football, and be a big week for them to see kind of what they've got against the team they historically have performed very poorly against.
Yeah, it's basketball season though, and I think Tennessee fans, with how Jazz Lanier played over in the Bahamas and how Tennessee played last year and made it to the Elite Eight, they're pretty excited for basketball season again. So make sure you guys not only check out Joey and his Vanderbilt stuff, but also his national college basketball stuff as you prepare for another season of Tennessee hoops. Joey, once again, thanks for hopping on. Links to everything you guys need is in the description. Thank you for watching.